If you're considering starting a career in project management, or you just started a career in project management, then it is vital to know the project management terms and concepts. This will help you to be considered as a project management professional and not a novice or a newbie, because you'll be speaking like a project manager and using the project management terms and concepts when performing your project work. Hey there, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're a subscriber, hey, thank you for joining me on this learning journey. My name is Ugaga Johnson, and I help aspiring and established project management professionals to start and build successful project management careers. And on this channel, I share everything about a career in project management, including life lessons from my project management career and business. So, if you're interested in starting a career in project management or advancing your project management career, then click on the subscribe button and let's learn together. All right, so like I said, it is vital, very vital to know the project management terms and concepts. When I was about to start my project management career, I can remember vividly that I learned the project management terms, concepts, understood what project management was all about. And I didn't really know that it would give me an edge, but I just wanted to know, okay, this career I wanted to go into, what do they even talk about? What are the terms? What are the methods? What are the concepts? And I can tell you that it helped me tremendously, because in my first interview, when they were asking me so many questions, I was able to answer them back using these terms. Like, they'll ask you something, I was like, yes, in my previous work, I was managing project stakeholders. I'm not saying I was managing people. I was talked about use the terms like stakeholders, or when I was communicating, I used the pull methodology to communicate. They were so impressed. And I was recognized as a project management professional. Me, that I was just starting out my career, but I was seen as a professional. They asked me, what are the triple constraints in every project? And I was like, yeah, that's easy. Scope, cost, and time. Boom! And I got the job after the interview because I knew the project management terms and I was speaking like a project manager. So I was able to relate with the project managers that were doing the interview and use the same lingo, the same language that they understand. So like, yeah, this is my person. They're using the same language. So yes, I got the job. And I can tell you that it is very important when you're starting off your career to know this, so that you will be considered as a professional and taken seriously. So that's the essence of this video, to help you set you on a path for success in your project management career. So in this video, I'll be sharing 10 project management concepts and terms that you should know. The first concept is project management life cycle. The project management life cycle talks about the 5 different stages that a project manager goes through when delivering a project. So you go through the initiation stage, you go through the planning stage, the execution stage, the monitoring and control stage, and then the closing stage. To successfully deliver a project, you should go through all the 5 stages. Initiation talks about, starting the project, formally authorizing the project and identifying your key stakeholders on the project. The planning phase is about planning all the activities that you'll be doing on the project and how you will execute, monitor and control the project, as well as close the project. Execution stage is delivery. You are now, working on everything that you've planned during the planning stage. You're working on them, you're delivering them. Monitoring and controlling, this occurs throughout the project. You are checking that what you planned is actually what's going on. So planned versus actual. And if there's any variation or differences, you are putting in corrective, preventive measures and actions to ensure that you bring the project back on track to where it needs to be. So monitoring and controlling is about performance measurements, checking how things are going on, and putting in actions to ensure that your project is performing as it should. And then finally, the closing stage. This basically is about wrapping up your project. Oh, we've finished the project. We have met the project objectives and fulfilled the project requirements. And now the project has been accepted by the project sponsor and it's time to close it off. So that is the closing phase. Next is the project sponsor. The project sponsor is the owner of the project. It can be a group or an individual. And this project sponsor provides the funds for the project so that you can acquire your resources and everything you need in order to deliver the project. The project sponsor also provides support to ensure that the project is a success. Project charter. A project charter is a document that formally authorizes the start of the project. In the project charter, you see high-level information on the project scope, like what the project is all about, the project objectives. You also see high-level information on who the key stakeholders are, what the high-level risks are. You also see information on what the high-level requirements are. So basically, in the project charter, you see various high-level requirements of the project. And one other thing about project charter is that it's the document that actually formally authorizes who the project manager will be on the project. And this charter gives the project manager authority to apply the various organizational resources, organizational funding to start and deliver the project. Project scope. Project scope tells you everything the project work will contain and only what the project work should contain. Project scope is very critical because it tells you what the requirements for the project should be. It tells you what is not included in the requirements, that is like what is out of scope for the project. It also tells you what the project deliverables are. As a project professional, you're at work and you're talking about, what will the project contain? Instead of saying what will the project contain, say what's the project scope. Because when you say that, project professionals know that you're talking about what should the project contain, what is excluded or out of scope from the project, what are the requirements for the project, what are the key objectives of the project. Basically, what should the project deliver at the end of the day is what the project scope is all about. And there's another term within project scope as well when delivering the project that you could hear. That's scope creep. Scope creep is an uncontrolled expansion of the scope. So on projects, sometimes changes happen. But if changes happen, then it should go through the formal change process. Now, once it goes through the formal change process and it is approved, the change should occur, then that's fine. But if changes happen and it doesn't go through the formal change process, it's just added onto the scope, then that is what we define as scope creep. So for example, on your project, you are building a 3-bedroom apartment. And in that 3-bedroom apartment, you have been told that one of the bedrooms will be en suite. And then you're working towards that. During the project, while you're executing the project, one of the stakeholders now come and they tell you that, you know what, I want all the rooms to be en suite. And then you go ahead and make all the bedrooms en suite without ensuring that that change request goes through a formal process. Well, that is scope creep because you've expanded the scope beyond what was agreed on in the project scope statement. Now let's move on to change request. A change request could occur in any project. So remember my example with the scope creep? For that stakeholder, as a project manager, you tell them, why don't you raise a change request for this change and this addition to the scope? That's the right thing to do. Now, a change request is basically a document that outlines what change that stakeholder wants. So it documents it, and when it's documented, you now take that document, that change request, to whoever is going to review it and make the decision on it, usually called a change control board. Especially if you're following a predictive methodology to deliver the project, you need to ensure that change requests are done once any change is needed on the project, especially if it was not agreed in the project scope. Project stakeholders. Project stakeholders are any individual, group, organization that could be affected by your project, or your project could affect them. It could even be that they just perceive that they may be affected by, the decision, an outcome, or an activity of your project. Then these people are stakeholders. So for example, you're building an airport in an area where there is a small community, a small residential community. Those people even if they are not part of your project in any way, in terms of they're not the builders, they're not the resources, they are not the, airport authority, those are the people, you contact, the regulators, they're not part of those, high people that you usually recognize as, yes, they're affected by the project. They're just a residential community. However, they are very important stakeholders because they may perceive that having an airport near their residential home could cause noise pollution and therefore affect their standard of living. So those people need to be identified, those residential area group of people, they need to be identified as stakeholders, okay? Because they perceive that they could be affected by the project. So those are stakeholders. And stakeholder management is about identifying all the stakeholders that could be on your project, whether affected by your project or your project is affecting them, or they perceive that it could be affected by your project. Identifying all of them, planning how you engage them, going on to engage them how they want to be engaged to ensure that they are on your side, supporting your project and not being resistant to your project. And then once you engage them, they're going on, you're also checking that every single stakeholder, they are engaged on your project. And this activity is done throughout the project, because at various stages of your project, you could identify new stakeholders or some other stakeholders in your project who maybe become non-relevant because what they were interested in that project has now concluded. So project stakeholders are very important in project management. Moving on, let's go to project communication methods. So all your stakeholders, they should not be communicated with in the same way. You shouldn't use the same method to communicate with them. The method you choose for communicating with them depends on their power, their influence, their interest on the project, and basically their communication requirements and preferences. So there are three main communication methods. You have the interactive method, you have the push method, and you have the pull method. The interactive method is face-to-face conversations. Even if it's virtual or in person, it means that it's face-to-face, so I can talk and you can talk back. So it's interactive. The pull communication method, imagine you're pulling information. So that's when you have information on like a shared portal or on a website, and any stakeholder interested in that information has to go to that website or that shared portal to get the information. Usually use pull communication when you have a large set of stakeholders that you need to inform because they're interested in your project. You use that because then whoever is interested, whenever they want, they can go to that portal or that website and pull the information. The third communication method is the push communication method. In this way, you're pushing the information to the relevant stakeholders. For example, emails. You're pushing the information to their email. So when they open the emails, you're not going to check or try and pull the information. The information is already there, seated on their email. They just have to open their email and they see it. So that is pushing the information right to their account. They don't need to go somewhere to get the information. That's push communication. Risk management is another concept in project management that you should be aware about. Risk management is about identifying the risk on a project, reviewing them, analyzing them, providing risk responses for them, planning those risk responses, and eventually responding to the risk when they occur and controlling those risks at the end. Risk management is very essential because all projects have risk associated to them. And risks are basically anything that could affect your project positively or negatively. So yes, there are positive risks and there are negative risks. So anything that could either be a threat to your project or an opportunity. So they are unknowns. Now, risks are not issues because issues are things that are already affecting your project. So there are currently problems on your project at the moment, whereas risks are, future, foreseen. They're not yet happening to your project, you're affecting your project, but you perceive that they could affect your project. Those are risks. So for example, you're doing a building project and you're doing it in Canada. You know that in the month of December, there will probably be lots of snow, so you won't be able to do any groundwork. So because of that risk you've identified, you have decided that before the month of November, we should have finished the foundation, we should have erected the structure and done the roofing, so that the work remaining to do will be work inside the building, which means that you won't really bother too much about the snow on the ground. Now, that is identifying your risk and putting that risk response to ensure that nothing threatens or hinders your project from being successful. So that's risk management. The next concept is project development methodologies. Project development methodologies are the methods you can use in project management to successfully deliver your project. Now, there are three main project management methodologies. You have the predictive method, you have the adaptive method, and you have hybrid. Hybrid is basically a combination of the predictive and the adaptive. So, for example, you have a project and you decide to use both methods at the same time on your project, you're using a hybrid methodology. The predictive methodology is also called waterfall. This methodology is when you know the full scope at the beginning of the project, and so because of that, you plan the entire project right from start. That is a predictive methodology because you can predict how the project will go. Okay, so most times, like construction projects are usually done in a predictive methodology because there is a fixed way that you do construction. You must do a foundation, you must do the structure erection, you must do the roofing, then you do the electricals, plumbing and all before you do the plastering and the other works that you do inside the building. So there's a fixed way of doing this. So because of that, you can plan almost the entire scope at the beginning and plan for the entire project right from the very start in order to deliver it. So that's predictive methodology, or popularly called the waterfall methodology. The next methodology is adaptive. Adaptive, an example is agile. I know most of you have heard about the agile methodology. This methodology is used when you have a complex project, so you can't plan everything upfront because there are so many unknowns, so many complexity and uncertainties involved in the project. So you want to plan as you go, and also you want to get feedback from your stakeholders, from your customers as you carry on the project in order to ensure that you are performing and producing and delivering the project as it should be. So agile methodology is used for frequent small deliveries and getting constant feedback from customers in order to ensure that you're delivering what is of business value, the most important, elements or features of the project that have business value quickly and first. So that's the adaptive, the predictive, and the hybrid methodology. So these methodologies are what you commonly use in the project field to deliver your projects. And finally, lessons learned. Lessons learned is the process of documenting knowledge, lessons, and things that you have discovered as you were developing and delivering your project. Documenting lessons learned on your project is very good because it helps future projects to learn from your mistakes and also to adopt processes and initiatives that worked well on your project. So know these concepts, understand these terminologies, and start using them when talking about project management so that you can be considered as a project pro and not a novice. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section. I will be responding to them. Until next time, bye.